Bookworms, welcome to Weekend Readers Book Club. Thank you for joining us. In this episode, we are discussing Legends, the best players, games, and teams in basketball by Howard Bryant. Let's go. As discussed last episode, this book was suggested to me, well, actually not suggested, actually handed to me by my 8-year-old who got this book from the library. It is a non-fiction book about basketball. It is from the school library, so it's age appropriate, I guess, in relation to there's no dodgy stuff in the book and whatnot. It's aimed at kids. This book covers, I'm going to say chapter by chapter, 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, I stopped that there, and then the 2010s. Each 10-year decade cycle in basketball. It has an overview of what happened in that decade. It had the best players. It had the best plays. It had the game of the final or the final series, what went on for each decade. 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and 2010s. So, I have read Legends, the best players, games, and teams in basketball. I'm just going to call it Legends by Howard Bryant from moving forward. You know what? The picture's on the screen, or I've already said the full name of the book. So I've read Legends by Howard Bryant. This is my review of this book. And discussion too. Review and discussion. So if we look at the basis of my son's 8, I've got an older son who's 10. This is at their primary school, so it goes up to year 6. So that's 10 to 11-year-olds, right? This book is actually really good for the type of material that an 8 to 10-year-old could actually read, review, get a good understanding of what went on in that decade, and then also actually have some stuff to, actually review on the likes of YouTube to see what Larry Bird played like, what Michael Jordan actually played like, information about the original Dream Team, information about the second Redeem Team. So it's really insightful for the amount of information, and Howard Bryant actually does this really well because everything is broken down into decades. It's the overall summary of the decade, and then, best players, best teams, and then, the story of the finals or, trivial stuff that happens on the decade. I didn't really gravitate to the best players, the best teams, or whatever. I read it, but I sort of pushed it to one side. I really enjoyed the story of the decade because even I learned some stuff that I didn't know, especially around the 60s, 70s, the form of the NBA, the ABA, the three-point line, the way the NBA was perceived as a pass and stand and shoot, and the ABA was more flamboyant, and that's what sort of transitioned into the NBA today. All that stuff I didn't really know, and it gave me a sort of a focal point to be like, I might actually be interested in researching them a little bit further. One thing I am interested in based on this book is researching the original Dream Team a bit further, because they did touch base on this in the book, and I was like, oh, that's right, that was the first time that, NBA superstars could rock up to the Olympics and they just dominated. I think they dominated, I can't remember. But yeah, this book is a lot of fun, and for the amount of information that is packed in here that can be absorbed, be it from kids and adults alike, I'm going to say it's enjoyable. It's very, very enjoyable. Now, there is one downside to this book, and that is, as I said, I gravitated towards the story of the decade more than the story of the finals, the story, the favorite players of that season, or anything else that was in the chapters. I wanted to really get more in depth in the story of the decade, of what actually happened, and more in depth year by year for the decades. What happened in the 60s, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, like really in depth. Like if you tell me that the Celtics dominated through all those years, like tell me like in depth what was actually going on, how they did everything. Like, while Legends by Howard Bryant gives you a good overview of what went on, it doesn't go as in depth as I wanted. But again, I'm an adult reading children's books, so I get why you don't pack all that information in there, because children would just be like, too much information. But as an adult, I'm like, oh man, I wish he did an adult version of this book where he just went into more detail, because he has detailed a lot of information in there. So yeah, that was my only down point of it. So yeah, a very, very enjoyable read. Legends, the best players, games, and teams in basketball by Howard Bryant. So the question will be, will Legends by Howard Bryant be going onto my bookshelf? And by that, do I mean, will it be returned back to the school library with my son, and I will go onto Amazon and see if I can find this book? The answer is no. As I said, it was a lot of fun to read, and I'm happy for my kids to read it because it gave them great knowledge and great information dump in relation to different generations of basketball. Because, your kids watch basketball today and all they see is Steph shooting from halfway and LeBron being the GOAT, even though he's not winning championships, but then you show them Luka and Luka's just doing Luka things, So, and it's intriguing to show them the past. And yeah, the book was interesting. It was a good read. But for me, as I said, I just want a bit more. But again, that's me saying that, reading a children's book. So, highly recommended book, but I'm not going to go out and buy it. But I would say if your children are interested in basketball, they want to read it, see if your local school library or your main library's got this book. See if they can pick it up, have it a read. They can read it over a couple of weekends if they're slow, or one weekend if they're fast. But yeah, great book, just not for me. So Bookworms, as a custom, is here on the Weekend Readers. As one book closes, another book has to open. It is now time to find out what the next read for the Weekend Readers is. At Bookworms, we can confirm, as written in Jasper Jones and as read by Eliza, yes, we are doing two books back to back that featured in Jasper Jones, the book that I read 2 books ago. We are reading Breakfast at Tiffany's by Truman Capote. I'd probably mispronounce that name completely, but we're reading Breakfast at Tiffany's. Never read the book. I know it's a movie. Don't think I've seen the movie. All I know of the movie is the working lady, that's what we'll call her, is in a bubble bath, and Richard Gere goes, "Hey, you want a pearl necklace?" And he opens up the box and then snaps the box closed or something, and she's like, in a bath drinking champagne. I don't know if that's correct. That's the only thing I can remember from Breakfast at Tiffany's. I may actually have the wrong movie. Who knows? But yeah, I am intrigued to see what this is like. Breakfast at Tiffany's, Truman Capote. Again, may mispronounce that name. You are the next read for the Weekend Readers Book Club. So Bookworms, that was my review and rant of Legends, the best players, games, and teams in basketball by Howard Bryant. Again, a great book aimed at children. It's non-fiction. My kid got it from the school library. Great read, great information if you're a basketball fan. If you're wanting to learn about every decade prior to the current decade, going back from the 60s onwards, it's worth a dig. It's worth a read, worth just something over the weekend. And then you'll probably find that you will do what I did, is I will read a decade, stop, and then go on YouTube, and I would actually Google it to see if I can find a mini documentary to explain it a bit further. As I said, remember, I said that I wanted more information about each chapter, about the decade. So yeah, it's a lot of fun, enjoyable book. But in saying that, Bookworms, thank you for joining us this episode. And until next time, happy reading.